MMC TV USA. Now on POTV, Channel 100.
Well, hello there once again and welcome to MMC World Roundup, bringing you news from Sri Lanka and across the globe. Well, to get started, let's take a look at your headlines first. Archaeologists have found 3,400-year-old prehistoric human remains in Jaffna. Sri Lanka and Japan signed grant assistance agreement amounting to 1,600 million Japanese yen. India's general election will take place in 7 phases over April and May. Archaeologists have found 3,400-year-old prehistoric human remains in a shell midden on Jaffna Velane Island. This is reported to be the first confirmed prehistoric human remains found in the Jaffna Peninsula. Researchers point out that the archaeological site with this data is located about 1 kilometer south of the well-known tourist attraction beach of Velane Island. The research was led by Thilanka Siriwardana, a senior lecturer at the Department of Archaeology and Heritage Management, Rajarata University of Sri Lanka, in association with the Groningen Institute of Archaeology of the University of Groningen in the Netherlands, along with Indika Jayasekara, Janina Nonis and Nadira Dissanayaka of the Institute of Archaeology and Heritage Studies. This research series has been carried out since 2009 on the historical use of coastal resources in Sri Lanka and especially on the usage trends related to seashells. Firstly, the southern coastal region of Sri Lanka, secondly, the northwestern coastal area of Sri Lanka, and thirdly, the Jaffna Peninsula and the archipelago were studied, and that research series has made many discoveries in the field of archaeology in Sri Lanka. This has changed the scholarly opinion that there are no prehistoric human settlements in Jaffna and that the first settlement of Jaffna may have been done by a community belonging to the South Indian megalithic culture. Sri Lanka and Japan signed the exchange of notes pertaining to the grant assistance amounting to 1,600 million Japanese yen to be provided under the Japanese Economic and Social Development Program. The government of Japan, as one of Sri Lanka's main development partners, provides concessional loans and various grant aid schemes such as economic and social development programs, technical cooperation, research partnerships, development studies, and non-project grant aid with a view to improving the socio-economic status by strengthening bilateral relations between the two countries. During the present economic crisis in Sri Lanka, the government of Japan has extended its cooperation by providing required immediate humanitarian assistance for the affected community as well as by equipping the public sector, aiming to improve the socio-economic situation in the country. At this juncture, at the request of the government of Sri Lanka, the government of Japan agreed to provide grant assistance amounting to Japanese yen 1,600 million under the Japanese Economic and Social Development Program, considering the requirements of diversified fields, namely marine environment, fishing, healthcare, and vocational training. The Ceylon Electricity Board has introduced a special electricity connection scheme for small and medium-scale enterprises and residences where they will pay 25% as down payment and the balance in installments. Earlier this month, Minister of Power and Energy Kanchana Wijesekara had said that electricity consumers would be allowed to make the payments for their new connections on an installment basis where they will be able to pay 25% of the connection fee upfront and the remaining amount within 10 or 12 installments. Speaking in Parliament, he had said that the CEB's Board of Directors has also green-lighted this endeavour. The Asian Development Bank has approved a $100 million loan to provide small and medium-sized enterprises in Sri Lanka more access to finance and build their resilience to external shocks such as the economic crisis and climate change. ADB's senior financial sector specialist Manohari Gunawardena said that SMEs play a critical role in Sri Lanka's economy, contributing 52% to the country's gross domestic product and employ 45% of the population. ADB, through participating financial institutions, will open a $50 million line of credit for underserviced SMEs in the export, tourism, technology, agriculture and manufacturing sectors. It will establish a $500,000 special facility for women-led SMEs. A gender gap assessment will be conducted with a view to improving women's access to finance. The project will build on the government's equity contribution through the National Credit Guarantee Institution Limited, which provides partial credit guarantees on loans to SMEs. ADB will help the NCGI adopt procedures to effectively support SMEs, including underwriting guarantees, risk management and risk-based pricing, and guarantee recovery operations. The project will incorporate green finance elements through climate adaptation and mitigation measures for SMEs. ADB is committed to achieving a prosperous, inclusive, resilient, and sustainable Asia and the Pacific while sustaining its efforts to eradicate extreme poverty. The acceptance of applications for the Presidential Scholarship Program 2024-2025 has been extended and a new deadline set for April 1st, the President's Media Division said. This program, initiated by the President's Fund under the advice of President Ranil Wickremesinghe and guided by President Secretary Mr. Saman Ekanayake, aims to benefit students who are studying despite facing various economic difficulties. The extension of the acceptance period for applications for the Presidential Scholarship Program 2024-2025 has been implemented in response to numerous requests. Zonal education directors have informed about the program to principals, divisional secretaries and Grama Niladhari officers. The President's Fund has encouraged parents to inquire about the program and submit the application form to the school principal accordingly. Additionally, as per the directives issued by the Secretary to the Ministry of Education, the allocation of scholarships to each school based on the number of students will be determined by the Regional Director of Education. These scholarships will then be distributed to the respective school principals within their regions. In line with this, all school principals are required to form a selection committee and starting from the 1st of April 2024, choose the scholarship recipients based on the allocated scholarships for their school. Furthermore, according to the instructions already given by the Secretary to the Ministry of Education, the number of scholarships that can be given to the school according to the number of students in each school will be decided by the Regional Director of Education and will be given to the principals of their region. The program targets supporting 100,000 students from grade 1 to grade 11 studying in all 10,126 schools across Sri Lanka. An allocation of 3,600 million rupees from the President's Fund has been designated for the entire scholarship program. Studies have found that there are more than 10,000 sources of contaminated water in the country's 103 rivers. Many industries have been established close to rivers. According to the Environment Ministry, the Kalani River, which is the main source of water for Colombo and the suburbs, is highly polluted. Around 7,000 large and medium-scale factories are operating in the Kalani River Valley from Kaduwela to the Paliaguda Bridge. There are thousands of business establishments, hotels, and private residences, including slums, discharging all sorts of waste into the Kalani River. The situation in other major river systems is no different. Out of the country's major river systems, the Mahabali River is the largest river basin, covering 1/5 of the land area of Sri Lanka. The 103 river basins cover the land extent of around 59,424 square kilometers, while the remaining area is covered by Jaffna Peninsula and small coastal basins, including the island of Kites and Kachathil. It is observed that divisional level government authorities are reluctant to take action against the river reservation encroachers in fear of unhealthy reactions from encroaching elements, inhabitants, and local politicians. Due to the prevailing extreme dry weather, 6.5 million litres of water evaporates daily from the Victoria Reservoir alone, the engineer in charge of the reservoir said. He said water evaporation rates are generally higher in hot, dry and windy weather, but the current weather evaporation can be described as very high. A part of the surface with a thickness of 4.5 millimeters evaporates every day due to the strong sunlight falling on the face of the reservoir, which is spread over an area of 24 square kilometers. The reservoir is currently filled up to 80% of its capacity. The maximum water level of the reservoir is 438.4 meters from sea level, and it is now filled to a height of 432.59 meters. A volume of 4.143 million cubic meters of water was released for the production of hydroelectricity in the last 17 days, and 1.691 gigawatt hours of electricity was generated. A well-respected American Buddhist monk and meditation teacher, Most Venerable Yogavachan Rahulathero, conducted a full-day retreat at Mindfulness Meditation Center to mark the Mathin Full Moon Poya Day. Nearly 40 devotees participated in the event with multinational backgrounds. Those devotees have Sri Lankan, Vietnamese, Indonesian, American, Nepalese and Burmese origins and enthusiastically joined the event. Most Venerable Yogavachan Rahula is a world-renowned American Buddhist monk who traveled to Asia in the 1970s when the hippie movement was on the rise. The Venerable monk was also searching for truth and happiness and had taken refuge in the Triple Gem. He encountered Buddhism when traveling in India, Nepal and Sri Lanka and became a monk in Sri Lanka in 1975. He has 50 years of deep meditation and yoga training. Yogavachan Rahulathero's way of teaching Buddhist meditation is quite unique, where he combines yogic practices with Buddhist meditation together. Most of the participants found his techniques very practical and authentic, which helped them a lot to reduce their physical and psychological stress and gain peace and happiness in their life. The Minister of Buddhasasana, Religious and Cultural Affairs has announced collaborative efforts with the Department of Archaeology to develop a new bill aimed at formally managing the discovery and preservation of the nation's antiquities and archaeological heritage. The archaeological heritage of Sri Lanka can be divided into three ages: prehistoric, protohistoric and historical period. The presence of man activities in Sri Lanka probably dates from 75,000 years ago. Prehistoric sites which are presently identified in the country are distributed from the maritime belt and the lowland plains of the wet and dry zones to the high plateaus and rainforests in the central and southwestern mountain regions of the island. The protohistoric period expands from about 1000 BC to the historical period at about 500 BC. The main indicators of the distribution of protohistoric and early settlements on the island are the megalithic burial and pottery sites. The beginning of the historical period of Sri Lanka is traditionally assigned to the reign of King Devanampiyathissa, when Buddhism was introduced to Sri Lanka by the missionaries sent by the Indian Emperor Ashoka. Sri Lanka's political and religious history is mainly set out by the ancient chronicles as well as over 4,000 stone inscriptions from the 3rd century BC onward, which give the history in considerable detail from the 3rd century and less reliably back to the 6th century BC. Sri Lanka has more than 250,000 identified archaeological sites throughout the country, and some of them have been declared as archaeological reserves and protected monuments by the Sri Lanka Archaeological Department. Plans are underway to establish a new police unit called City Traffic Police to enhance coordination and capability of traffic control efforts in and around Colombo. A senior police officer said that all the police jurisdiction areas from Colombo to Kadawatha, Katunayaka, Kaduwela, Moratuwa, Kottava and Piliyandala will come under the jurisdiction of the new City Traffic Police when it is established. The officer said that the work of establishing this new police traffic unit will be carried out promptly, and the Colombo Municipal Traffic Police, Western South and Western North Traffic Police divisions will come under the jurisdiction of this new unit. The approval of the Public Security Ministry has been received for this initiative. The establishment of the new City Traffic Police unit, the officers of the traffic sections of all the police stations which come under its jurisdiction will come under the supervision of the DIG of the Western Province Traffic Police. Banksy has confirmed that he is behind a new artwork that appeared in North London. The street artist uploaded before and after pictures of the Finsbury Park mural to social media on Monday. It shows green paint sprayed on a wall behind a cut-back tree to look like foliage, with a stencil of a person holding a sprayer next to it. Crowds have gathered to see the mural, with one local saying they were proud their street had been chosen. Former Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn said he was delighted to see the artwork in his Islington North constituency. The mural shows a great arterial spray of green paint across a white wall, accompanied by a classic Banksy-style stencil. It is becoming increasingly apparent that immigration will be a major issue for voters in this year's U.S. presidential election. Since U.S. President Joe Biden took office in 2021, more than 6.2 million people who did not have permission to enter the United States have attempted to cross the border from Mexico, and more than 2 million have been allowed to remain while they await an immigration hearing. This marked increase from previous years has become a source of controversy. While Biden's critics claim dubiously that immigrants are driving up crime rates and taking Americans' jobs, some Democrats are doubling down on calls to decriminalize illegal border crossings altogether. The first group accuses the second of undermining national security, while advocates of decriminalization accuse immigration hardliners of racism and xenophobia. With Americans arguably more divided than at any time since the Civil War, U.S. politicians are peddling simplistic rhetoric about an immensely complex issue to stoke fear and anger, deepening the country's political polarization. But there is good news for the American people. The truth about immigration is far less frightening than what some politicians and media figures want you to believe. For starters, immigrants are much less likely to commit crime than U.S. citizens. Nationwide, illegal immigrants tend to be incarcerated at a much lower rate than native-born Americans. During Barack Obama's presidency, the U.S. deported more than 5.3 million people, or around 2.65 million per term, which is more than the 2 million deported during Donald Trump's one term. India's general election will take place in 7 phases over April and May, the Election Commission says. The results will be announced on 4th June, Chief Election Commissioner Rajiv Kumar told a news conference. With some 968 million eligible voters, India's election will be the largest the world has seen. Opinion polls predict a win for Narendra Modi's Bharatiya Janata Party and its allies, which is eyeing a record 3rd term in power. More than 24 opposition parties, including the Congress, have formed a coalition bloc called the Indian National Developmental Inclusive Alliance, or India, to take on the BJP at this election. India's lower house has 543 elected seats, and any party or a coalition needs a minimum of 272 MPs to form a government. The BJP, led by Mr. Modi, has won a staggering 303 of the 543 seats in the 2019 election. This year, the party says its target is to win at least 370 seats. Some states will hold polls in several phases. Voting will be staggered beginning on the 19th of April and ending on the 1st of June, Mr. Kumar said. Some 968 million people, 150 million more than the last elections in 2019, are eligible to vote. Electronic voting machines will be used and will contain a none of the above button. India appointed 2 new election commissioners on Thursday to fill vacant spots in the 3-person election commission. Days before the poll dates were announced, the sudden resignation of Arun Goel, the second highest officer in the Election Commission, had left the poll body with only one of the 3 mandated members, the Chief Election Commissioner. Well, that's all the news we have for you today, but you can also find us on POTV, Samsung TV, LG TV, Apple TV, YouTube and Facebook Live, reaching the entire United States and across the world. Thank you so much for joining in with us today, and until we meet you again next week, have a wonderful week ahead.
To catch the full program and more, subscribe to MMC TV USA on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram and TikTok